I used to think the quietest heartbreaks came from hospitals or funerals. Turns out, they can arrive inside a pretty white envelope. The night the invitation arrived, snow feathered the windows of my brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. A gold-trimmed card lay on the marble countertop, Lucas and Harper's wedding. My fingers trembled, not from age but from pride. My son was getting married. It should have felt like joy. But the envelope was addressed only to Margaret Coleman. No note, no small handwriting from my son like he used to add when he was little. Just perfect cursive that smelled distant. I called Lucas right away. He picked up on FaceTime, his face lit up my iPhone screen. "Mom," he said, beaming, "it's happening, June 12th. Terrace ceremony, right by the East River." "The River Cafe?" I asked. He nodded. Behind him I saw fairy lights strung across a rehearsal board, a Pinterest mood board taped to the wall. "Yeah, the terrace, small ceremony, sunset vows, just family." Just family. Such a sweet sentence, until it broke later. Lucas talked about the menu, the jazz trio, the tiny lemon cakes he knew I loved. I felt my chest warm. But then Harper drifted into the frame. Her smile was polished, not warm. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Coleman," she said, like a receptionist greeting a stranger. She didn't call me Maggie, she used to. "I love the invitation," I said gently. "Did you pick the River Cafe?" "Actually, my mother did." Harper replied, "She wants a more curated guest list." Lucas shifted. His hand dropped away from Harper's waist. He looked uncomfortable. I noticed that tiny detail. Mothers always do. "Mom," he jumped in, clearing his throat, "could you maybe keep things low profile? Harper thinks we should keep the planning simple. Don't worry about anything. Just show up and smile." There was an ache behind those words, something unspoken. "I wouldn't intrude," I said softly. "You're not intruding," Lucas insisted, too fast. "You're my mom." But Harper leaned closer to the camera. "Anyway," she said, voice sugar slick, "we'll handle everything. My mom's already dealing with the vendors. No need to involve anyone else." Anyone else. A strange phrase when the wedding was for Lucas, my only child. That night, I drove to the River Cafe to see the terrace myself. Manhattan's skyline shimmered across the water, one of the most breathtaking views a couple could choose. Inside, people toasted with champagne, cameras flashed, the soft chime of cutlery felt like magic. A young event coordinator approached me. Her name tag read Ava Park. "Are you here for the Coleman Reed wedding tour?" she asked kindly. "Yes," I smiled. "I'm the groom's mother." She checked her tablet and hesitated. "Oh," she said, voice lowering, "I was told only the bride, her mother, and someone named MC Foundation LLC are authorized for updates." My spine froze. MC Foundation LLC. Those were my initials, my nonprofit. I had quietly paid the initial deposit months ago because Lucas was saving for a mortgage. I never told him. I wanted it to be a gift. But why? Had I been removed? "Is something wrong?" I asked. Ava glanced around and whispered, "I shouldn't say this, but the bride's mother asked if the terrace package could be sold privately to extended guests for a premium price. We refused, of course." Sold. They were trying to sell seats at Lucas's wedding? The skyline glittered behind glass, but suddenly everything felt cold. I walked out into the frosted night with a heaviness I couldn't name yet. Weddings are supposed to unite families, but something in the wind felt like warning. And deep in my coat pocket, the pretty gold-trimmed invitation pressed against my palm like a secret message. "You're already being pushed out." By February, the wedding stopped feeling like a celebration and started behaving like a spreadsheet. I learned that from the emails. Well, from the emails I no longer received. One Monday morning, I opened my MacBook at the kitchen table, the same spot where Lucas used to do middle school algebra. I refreshed my inbox. Nothing from the planner. Nothing from the florist. I checked the old planning thread and saw the quietest signal of exile. The little gray bubble where my name had been was now gone. The subject line had the same title, Coleman Reed Timeline, but the participants had changed. I texted Lucas, "Hey love, looks like I got dropped from the vendor emails. Probably a mistake?" His reply came fast, too fast. Harper's mom streamlined the list. Fewer cooks. She said she'd forward major updates. "No stress, Mom." I stared at the screen. No stress is what people say after creating all of it. That evening, Lucas stopped by with a canvas bag of groceries. He reached for the top cabinet without thinking, just like when he was tall enough to help me for the first time at 12. We stood shoulder to shoulder chopping onions in the soft hum of the vent, It felt like our old life for 3 minutes. Rehearsal dinner is moving, he said casually, as if announcing the weather. Her family thinks the original spot is too rustic. Rustic? I smiled. It was at the little trattoria where you celebrated your college acceptance. He smiled, then softened. Mom, I remember. But Victoria's booking a private room near the water. She's covering it. You don't have to. I already paid the deposit at the trattoria, I said, gentle as I could. I'll cancel it. His knife paused. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. He washed his hands in the sink, watching the water rinse away the onion smell. Please, keep things easy. Harper's under pressure. Her mom makes everything look perfect. Just show up and be beautiful, okay? I thought of the gold-trimmed invitation pressing into my palm last month, of the whisper at the River Cafe about selling premium seats. I swallowed it back. Okay. After he left, I bundled into my coat and walked 2 blocks to the Starbucks on the corner. I didn't need caffeine, I needed a neutral place to think. I found a 2-top in the window, ordered a decaf, and opened a folder, paper, not digital, because sometimes survival wants ink. Under the vendor list was the venue contract I'd signed through my nonprofit, MC Foundation LLC. Ava had emailed an updated copy earlier that day for your records, careful and professional. Section 7, paragraph 2. Client and client's agents are prohibited from subcontracting or reselling access, seating, or services. Any attempt constitutes material breach. Material breach, a cold, clean phrase. I highlighted it. I highlighted the notice procedure, too. I traced the dates with my pen and counted backward. If someone tried to sell access, I had a duty, not a desire, a duty to stop the harm. Not just for my son's dignity, but for the venue's reputation and the vendors who'd see their work turned into a marketplace. The next morning, I walked down the brownstone steps into air that smelled like wet stone and river wind. On Montague Street, I caught Lucas on the phone before he entered the subway. Baby, I said, have you and Harper chosen readings for the ceremony? He smiled the way he did when he was 8 and successfully tied his shoelaces. Working on it. She found something on Pinterest about boundaries in marriage. Boundaries are good, I said. They protect what matters. He nodded, misreading me, and hugged me quick before the turnstile. Thanks for understanding, Mom. I understood more than he knew. Boundaries weren't the problem. Ownership was. 2 days later, I tried to join a walkthrough at the terrace, thinking maybe we could reset in person. Ava met me by the host stand. Mrs. Coleman, she said carefully, today is limited to the bride and her mother. I nodded. Of course. Could you make sure Lucas sees the updated floor plan himself? And the policy about resale? I don't need to be in the room, but he does. Ava's eyes softened. I will. That night, Lori, my neighbor, my friend, sent me a message I had to read twice. It was a screenshot of a private story, the kind people post when they want power without witnesses. In neat text over a boomerang of champagne flutes, Victoria had written, upgrading terrace access. Limited premier seating available, message me. The boomerang looped, glasses clinked, money glinted, and somewhere between the rings of light, I could feel the ground tilt. I set my phone face down and exhaled. The rules had changed. If they were going to turn my son's wedding into inventory, I would have to decide whether love meant staying silent or standing up. 2 months before the wedding, the world on Fifth Avenue shimmered like it had too much money and not enough kindness. Harper invited me to her final dress fitting. I took it as an olive branch. Maybe this was her way of rebuilding something fragile. The bridal boutique sat under a canopy of spring blossoms, its front window draped with lace gowns that sparkled like fresh snow under showroom lights. Inside, the air smelled of silk and perfume. Harper stepped out of the dressing area, layered in ivory satin. The gown hugged her like it had been born from her own skin. For a moment, I remembered she was a young woman in love, terrified of imperfection. You look beautiful, I told her. She stared into the floor-length mirror, adjusting the veil. My mom says the photographer should focus on clean lines, minimal distractions. Weddings aren't about lines, I said gently. They're about hearts. She didn't answer. The photographer, hired for a pre-ceremony shoot, began arranging poses near a marble column. I moved closer, instinctively, like any mother would. Harper glanced at me through the mirror and said lightly, "Oh, Mrs. Coleman, maybe just stand a little to the side. It's better for symmetry." I stepped aside. Minutes later, Victoria arrived wearing oversized sunglasses, carrying a designer tote and an attitude sharp enough to slice bread. "Let's try a group photo," the photographer suggested. He motioned for us to gather behind Harper. Victoria took charge. "Actually, let's have a clean family line. Bride, parents, maid of honor." She paused, eyes landing on me. "You can be in some later." Some later. I smiled because dignity sometimes hides behind small acts of silence. I walked back toward the shop counter. The sales associate noticed my quiet retreat and offered a glass of sparkling water, the kind served in crystal flutes that make even sadness look elegant. Across the boutique, Harper's maid of honor adjusted Harper's train. The photographer lifted his camera, then Harper's voice cut across the room. "It's easier if she stays out of the frame. The symmetry works better." She, not Mrs. Coleman, not Maggie, just she. The shutter clicked. A beautiful bride, a curated family, a missing mother. While they posed, I sat on a velvet bench and checked my phone. Ava had sent a brief update, notifying venue additional inquiries about seat transfers, keeping record, proof, paper trails. This wasn't chaos, it was orchestration. Victoria floated toward me, perfume first. "You okay, dear? Photos can be overwhelming." "I'm fine," I said. "It's Harper's day." She lifted a sculpted brow. "Exactly. That's why we have to protect the visual. Too many faces clutter the narrative." I almost laughed. A wedding wasn't a movie poster. It was two families becoming one. But she didn't want families. She wanted symmetry. As Harper changed into her clothes, the photographer reviewed shots on his screen. I overheard him telling Victoria, "She's easy to crop out later if needed." I felt the words like a pin in my chest. Later that evening, Lucas and I met for dinner at a casual diner on Court Street. Grease on the plates, neon lights humming, imperfections that felt like oxygen. "How was the fitting?" he asked, eyes hopeful. "It was lovely," I lied, because truth is a scalpel and I didn't want to bleed him with it. But the lie tasted metallic. "Lucas," I said, "has anyone talked to you about selling seats at the wedding?" He blinked, confused. "Selling? No. Why would anyone?" A waiter passed, interrupting. I swallowed the moment. "Never mind, just promise me you'll look at every contract before signing anything." His brow tightened. "You think Harper's hiding something?" "I think love shouldn't need receipts." He didn't answer. He just reached across the table and squeezed my hand the same way he used to ask to cross the street when he was little. That night, I walked home under strings of bodega lights. The boutique, the cropping, the staging. It wasn't grooming a wedding. It was erasing a mother. And somewhere on Fifth Avenue, a camera lens had already learned how to remove me. 6 weeks before the wedding, spring rain tapped against my windows like gentle fingers trying to warn me. I spent the night sitting on the couch, the invitation on my lap, unopened again and again. There was no reason to open it. I knew I wouldn't find warmth inside. The house felt unbearably quiet. Lucas used to fill it with noise, guitar practice, spilled cereal, late-night movie marathons. Now it was just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the clock ticking above the fireplace. Around midnight? Unable to stop my mind from spiraling, I reached for my Kindle. I had been reading Atomic Habits, the part about tiny changes that protect our peace. One highlighted line glowed on the screen. "Boundaries are the architecture of respect." I stared at that sentence for a long time. If boundaries were respect, why did theirs feel like a cage around me? My phone buzzed. A photo popped up. Harper surrounded by bridesmaids at a rooftop bar, holding champagne. The caption read, "Last fling before the ring." Someone had tagged Lucas, but his face wasn't there. Instead, Victoria was front and center, clinking glasses like a queen. I turned off the phone and let silence settle again. Later that night, I opened an old wooden box from my bookshelf, the memory box Lucas made for me in 7th grade. It still had the crooked hinges and the little heart he carved on top with a craft knife. Inside were dried flowers from his school play, ticket stubs from baseball games, and a tiny note written in messy pencil. "Mom, you're my +1 to life." I pressed that note to my chest and cried quietly, the kind of tears you hide even from yourself. Because the worst heartbreak isn't anger, it's absence. The next morning, I met Lori, my neighbor and oldest friend, for breakfast at a cafe on Atlantic Avenue. She arrived with 2 umbrellas and a look that could read my soul. "You didn't sleep," she said. "No." She ordered for both of us. While we waited, I told her everything. the cropped photos, the boutique humiliation, the private story selling seats. When I finished, she leaned forward, voice low. Maggie, that's fraud. They're monetizing a wedding that isn't theirs to sell. I don't want to ruin Lucas's life, I whispered. I don't want revenge. You're not thinking about revenge. You're thinking about protecting your son. I traced the rim of my coffee cup. If I speak, I'll be the villain. If I stay silent, I'll lose him anyway. Lori reached across the table and squeezed my hand. The truth doesn't need fireworks. It just needs a spine. After breakfast, instead of going home, I walked to the river cafe. Rain shimmered along the East River, the skyline blurred behind silver clouds. Inside, Ava was reviewing seating charts on a tablet. She looked up with gentle eyes. Mrs. Coleman, I've kept record of every inquiry from the bride's mother. It's troubling. I don't want a war, I said, just honesty. Ava nodded. The venue has a responsibility to prevent exploitation. If premium seating is being offered for cash, that's a breach. I hesitated. If enforcement happens, will it affect Lucas's wedding? It could, she said carefully, but doing nothing could affect it more. I walked back outside and stood under the awning, watching tourists take photos of the water. Weddings were supposed to be joy, not transactions. Families were supposed to grow, not shrink. That night, back in my living room, I unlocked my laptop. I read the venue contract again. The legal wording was cold but ethical underneath. And suddenly, for the first time, my pain had a direction. I wasn't being erased because I was unimportant. I was being erased because someone wanted the stage and profit. There's a kind of silence that isn't weakness. It's the moment before you stand up. And I stood. 4 weeks before the wedding, the truth stopped being emotional and turned quietly into legal. I made an appointment at the River Cafe, not as a mother, but as the contracting party. The terrace was empty when I arrived, rainwater glistening on the railing like strings of glass beads. Ava met me inside, her tablet in hand, her expression solemn. I need to review the breach clause, I said. She guided me to a small table overlooking the river. Manhattan was a watercolor of gray and silver behind the windows. Ava opened the contract on her tablet. Section 7. Resale or commercial upgrading of seats is prohibited. We've documented 3 separate inquiries and 1 attempted transaction from the bride's mother. My heart didn't pound. It didn't rage. It just steadied. What happens now? I asked. You're within your rights to issue a notice of cancellation, she said, because you are the legal client. The contract doesn't belong to the bride's family. It belongs to you. For a long moment, I stared at the skyline. I had paid that deposit with love, not money. I wanted Lucas to have beauty, dignity, and a memory that felt like a promise, not a business deal. Prepare the notice, I said. Ava's voice softened. It doesn't have to be the end of the wedding. If Lucas wants, he can sign a new contract under his name. We'll honor the same rates, reset everything. But the exploitation has to stop. My chest tightened, not with fear but clarity. This wasn't revenge, this was protection. We went over paperwork quietly. Ava printed a draft and slid a Mont Blanc pen across the table. I signed. The pen felt heavy, like the weight of every moment I'd stayed silent. Outside, a sleek Mercedes S-Class pulled up. The tinted window rolled down and revealed Victoria in designer sunglasses, her smile thin as a blade. "Oh, Maggie," she said sweetly. "Here for a tasting? I hope you're not overstepping." "No tasting," I answered. "Just business." She tilted her head. "You sound tense. Did something go wrong?" "Not at all. Everything is exactly as it should be." Her eyes narrowed, but before she could question me, Ava approached the car window with perfect professionalism. "Mrs. Reed," she said, "please check your email. We've sent official correspondence regarding your recent seat inquiries." Victoria's lips froze. "Correspondence?" "Yes," Ava said evenly. "Attempts to resell or upgrade access for profit violate venue policy. We are obligated to notify the contracting party." Victoria's stare darted to me. Slow realization flickered in her eyes. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I simply stepped back and let the truth speak for itself. That night, Lucas showed up at my door. His hair was messy, his breath uneven, like he had run the whole way. "Mom," he said, chest rising and falling, "why did the venue email Harper's family?" I invited him in. We sat at the dining table, the same place he learned his times tables, the same place we celebrated every birthday with chocolate cake. "Because," I said gently, "they tried to sell access to your wedding." Premium seats, private payments. It wasn't rumor. It wasn't gossip, it was real. His face went pale. I didn't want to tell you, I continued. I wanted you to enjoy your day, but someone turned your wedding into a marketplace. And that's not love, Lucas, that's profit. He dropped his face into his hands. I don't know who to believe anymore. Believe the paperwork, I said softly, and believe the part of you that knows what a wedding should be. He lifted his eyes, shiny, broken. So, what happens now? The contract is canceled, but you still have a choice. If you want this venue, if you want your wedding, you can sign a new agreement in your own name. Clean slate, no one profits, no one controls you. He stared at me for a long time. Then something changed in his expression, like a door cracking open inside him. I need time, he whispered. You have it. When he left, he hugged me tightly, longer than he had in months. And in that embrace, I knew a truth no contract could erase. Sometimes a mother protects her child without raising her voice. She just removes the weapon from the room. 2 weeks before the wedding, the disaster didn't come with screaming or broken dishes. It came with emojis. My phone buzzed at 6:12 a.m. I reached for it half awake, expecting Lucas. Instead, there were screenshots, dozens, sent by friends, cousins, even former coworkers. A private Facebook post from Victoria had leaked. Some people can't stand seeing others shine. Jealousy is a disease. Pray for those who sabotage weddings. Mother of the bride, stay classy, no names, no details. Just enough poison for people to connect the dots. Within hours, strangers were commenting under photos of Lucas and Harper. Protect the bride from toxic in-laws. If his mom loved him, she wouldn't interfere. Jealous older women ruin everything. It was a digital crowd with digital pitchforks. I put the phone face down on the dining table and breathed through the ache in my chest. Silence can feel holy or suffocating. Around noon, Lucas came over. His shoulders sagged, eyes red like he hadn't slept. He wore his everyday citizen watch, tick, 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 like a countdown to a wreck. Mom, he said, voice cracking. Harper is freaking out. Her family thinks you're trying to destroy the wedding. They want to file a restraining order. My heart stumbled. A restraining order? Against me? He nodded. Her mother claims you canceled the venue to force Harper out. She says you're obsessed. I stared at him. Look at me. Do you believe that? His jaw tightened. He didn't answer. That silence hurt more than any comment online. I walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled out a folder, and set it between us on the coffee table. Read. Inside were emails from Ava, documented inquiries, contract clauses, timestamps, facts, not feelings. He scanned page after page. The deeper he read, the faster his breath changed. Anger, confusion, shame. Finally, he whispered, she tried to sell seats at my wedding. She did, I said gently, more than once. He put his head back against the couch cushion, eyes closed. Why wouldn't Harper tell me? I didn't answer. Some truths are too sharp to speak out loud. Just then, his phone rang. He answered on speaker. Harper's voice exploded into the room. Hysterical, breathless, dramatic. Lucas, my mom is losing her mind. The venue sent legal notices. She said your mom is sabotaging us. My bridesmaids think she's unstable. My aunt wants to cancel her flight. Fix it. Harper, he said quietly, did your mom try to sell seats? Silence. Then a shaky exhale. Why are you listening to her? She forged something. You know how manipulative she is. Lucas's eyes widened. The documents are from the venue. They're real. She's turning you against me. Against my family. I swear if you don't fix this, I'm calling the police and... He didn't let her finish. He hit end call. For a moment we sat there in a kind of stunned, painful quiet. Then he whispered, she sounded like a stranger. I reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. That night, the storm worsened. Harper posted an Instagram story, her crying in a bathroom mirror, mascara-streaked text reading, some moms can't let go. Thousands of views, hundreds of comments. People chose sides, most chose the bride. The internet always loves a villain. At 10:42 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it to find 2 officers on my stoop, professional, patient. Ma'am, we received a complaint, one said. No action is being taken. We just need to confirm you're aware of escalating tensions. I nodded. I'm aware. Behind them, Lucas stepped forward from the sidewalk. She's done nothing wrong, he told the officers. I have proof someone else violated the contract. The taller officer glanced between us and gave a small nod. Just keep it civil. Good night. When they left, Lucas stayed on the porch, staring at the quiet street. I don't know who I'm marrying anymore, he said. I feel like I'm choosing between two worlds. You're choosing truth, I whispered. He leaned against the railing, broken but thinking deeper than he ever had. And in the glow of the porch light, something in his eyes hardened. Not cruelty, not anger. Clarity. The storm wasn't over, but the wind had changed direction. 10 days before the wedding, Lucas finally stopped trying to hold a broken bridge together. We were in my kitchen that morning, sunlight pouring through the window, bouncing off the stainless steel sink. I was slicing strawberries for breakfast when he walked in, eyes swollen, voice hoarse. We need to talk, he said. He pulled out a chair at the table, the same seat he used to take when he was 8, and demanded pancakes on Saturdays. Only now, the world was heavier on his shoulders. I called Harper, he continued. I told her we needed a real conversation. No crying, no screaming, just truth. And? I asked carefully. She said she'd come over with her mom. I set the knife down. Here? Yes. I told them it had to be somewhere neutral. They chose your house because they don't want neighbors seeing anything. I almost laughed at the irony. Reputation mattered more to them than honesty. An hour later, a black SUV pulled up. Harper stepped out first, skin pale, eyes red-rimmed, clutching her phone like a weapon. Victoria followed in a tailored blazer and cold determination. Lucas opened the door. Harper rushed in, tears already trembling. Lucas, please. This is destroying everything. Our guests are terrified. The wedding will be canceled. My bridesmaids booked flights. Vendors are calling. You have to stop listening to her. Victoria crossed her arms. We need a statement clearing our family's name, publicly. Lucas stayed silent for a long, painful moment. Then he opened his laptop on the kitchen island, MacBook Pro, screen bright. I want you both to see something, he said. He clicked play on an audio file, a recorded phone call. Ava's voice, Victoria's voice. Victoria, if you can move the front row seating to premium, I already have offers. Cash only. I don't want it on record. Harper went still. Victoria's face drained of color. Lucas paused the audio. You said Mom forged documents. You said she lied. But this is your voice, selling seats at my wedding. Victoria's chin lifted, defensive. This was business. Everyone upgrades seating. No, Lucas said quietly. This isn't a concert. This is my marriage. Harper tried to grab his hands. Lucas, you don't understand the pressure. Weddings are expensive. My family spent more than yours ever. He stepped back as if her touch burned. Don't finish that sentence. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I wanted it perfect. At what cost? His voice cracked. You erased my mother from photos. You let the internet call her toxic. You sent police to her home. That was my aunt, Harper screamed. Mom just told her to scare her. Victoria's eyes flickered, caught. Lucas turned away, breathing hard. I don't recognize either of you. He walked to the counter, pulled out a velvet jewelry box, the wedding band he'd chosen months ago. He set it down. The soft click echoed like a verdict. We can still get married, he said, but only if everything is honest. New venue contract, no selling, no lies, no humiliating my mother. Harper stared at him, shaking. Or, he continued, voice low, we call everything off. The room froze. Victoria scoffed, sharp and angry. You're bluffing. You don't have the spine to throw away a wedding of this scale. Lucas met her eyes, steady, quiet, and utterly changed. I'd rather have a marriage with no wedding than a wedding with no respect. Harper broke. She dropped her phone, collapsed into a chair, sobbing. I messed everything up, didn't I? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to me and wrapped his arms around my shoulders. It was the kind of hug that makes a lifetime's worth of distance collapse. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered. I should have seen it sooner. I held him tighter than I had in years. Seeing the truth late is still seeing it. Victoria grabbed her purse, humiliated. We'll handle this ourselves. When they left, the house felt lighter. Not peaceful yet, but lighter. Lucas leaned against the counter, eyes closed, breathing like someone finally surfaced from deep water. What do I do now? He asked softly. You build, I answered. But you build on something real. Outside on the sidewalk, the SUV pulled away, shrinking into traffic. Inside my kitchen, my son wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man choosing truth over spectacle. And that was the first moment I believed the wedding might become a marriage again. 5 days before the wedding, the silence broke, not in anger, but in paperwork. I was drinking tea at the kitchen table when Ava called. Her tone was calm, but there was a razor edge beneath it. "Mrs. Coleman, I'm obligated to notify you," she said. "Based on the evidence we gathered, our legal department issued a formal cease and desist to Mrs. Reed. And another agency has reached out." My chest tightened. "Which agency?" "The State Consumer Protection Office," Ava answered. "Selling access to private events for cash falls under commercial misrepresentation. Someone filed a report with the recordings attached." I wasn't surprised. Somewhere in that chain of forwarded screenshots, someone did the world needed accountability. The internet may be cruel, but sometimes it sends truth to the right place. Ava continued, "Your son should know the wedding can continue, just under his name with transparency. We're protecting him." Her voice wasn't dramatic, it was respectful, professional, and it felt like oxygen. After the call, I opened my MacBook Pro and saw the email myself. Thick legal language. Names, dates, attachments. It didn't accuse Victoria of malice, it accused her of profit. That mattered more. Around noon, Lucas arrived. He looked exhausted, but for the first time in weeks, not defeated. "I talked to a lawyer," he said, "and the venue, and the officiant. Everyone's ready to move forward. If I take ownership." I nodded. "Do you want to?" He exhaled slowly. "I want a marriage, not a spectacle." He sat down beside me, scrolling through the legal notice. "Mom, this is bigger than I realized. My wedding was becoming a business model." "You didn't fail," I said. "You just trusted." "That's not a flaw." His phone buzzed. Harper. He didn't answer. Instead, he opened the ring box, the simple Cartier band he'd chosen months ago. He held it in his palm like something fragile. "I'm still willing to marry her," he whispered. "But not like this, not under lies." Before I could speak, there was a knock on the door. 2 women in navy blazers stood outside. Official badges, serious expressions. "Are you Margaret Coleman?" one asked. "Yes." "We're with the Consumer Protection Office. We're gathering statements regarding unauthorized resale of event services. We believe you may have relevant information." Lucas froze. I stepped aside and invited them in. They were polite, efficient, and careful. They didn't treat this like gossip. They treated it like law. I gave my statement, handed over copies of Ava's documentation, timestamps, screenshots, and the audio file. They thanked me and left as quietly as they came. Lucas stared at the closed door. "If this goes forward, then the truth goes forward," I said. He rubbed his forehead. "Harper's mom will deny everything. She can try, but denial doesn't erase a recording." Later that evening, Harper finally texted him. "Harper, my mom got a legal notice. She said you turned her in. How could you humiliate us?" Lucas typed slowly. "Lucas, I didn't report her. But someone did, and the recording is real. Then delete it. Withdraw it. Say you lied." "I'm not lying. If you love me, you'll protect my family." "Lucas, if you loved me, you'd protect mine." After that, she went silent. He set the phone down, breathing unevenly. "I don't know what she'll do." "She'll choose," I said. "Everyone has to eventually." That night, he drafted a new contract with the venue. His name, his terms, no resale, no interference. Ava sent the countersignature. The River Cafe Terrace was his again. A real wedding, cleaned of shadows. When Lucas left, he hugged me, less desperate than before, more grounded. "Mom," he said quietly, "I think the hardest part is realizing love doesn't always come with kindness." I cupped his cheek like I did when he was small. "Then you choose the kind of love you want." Outside, the city lights blinked across the river. Not fireworks, not violence. Justice, written on paper, sealed with signatures. It didn't roar. It simply stood. On the afternoon of the wedding, the sky over the East River was brushed with gold. Like the city was blessing something quiet, not extravagant. The River Cafe Terrace was smaller than the original guest list, but somehow warmer. White chairs, soft blooms, jazz floating like a memory. No crowd, no drama, just the people who loved Lucas without price tags. I wore a simple navy dress and pinned my hair up myself. When I arrived, Lucas stood near the railing, adjusting his tie. His eyes softened when he saw me. "You came," he whispered. "I never left you," I answered. He hugged me, forehead against mine for one brief second, the kind that stores itself in a mother's heart forever. Guests began filtering in, close friends, a few coworkers, an aunt from Chicago who had driven overnight. They signed a small guest book, not a lucrative seating chart. Ava walked over with a gentle smile. "Everything is set, Mr. Coleman. Vendors confirmed, efficient ready." She turned to me. Thank you for doing the right thing early enough for this to still be a wedding. Before the ceremony could begin, the air shifted. A black SUV pulled up in the drop-off lane. I recognized it instantly. Victoria stepped out first, sharp blazer, sharper expression. Harper followed, eyes swollen, dress wrinkled, clutching her bouquet like a lifeline. Lucas froze. Harper hurried forward. Lucas, I'm here. I'm ready. We can still have our wedding, our real one. This is the real one, he said softly. Victoria inserted herself between them. This is illegal. You canceled a contract that wasn't yours to cancel. You humiliated my daughter. You owe us restitution. Ava approached with calm professionalism. Ma'am, the contract legally belonged to MC Foundation LLC. Your attempts to resell access violated venue policy. Our legal team notified the proper agencies. You were informed in writing. You think this scares me? Victoria hissed. It's not meant to scare you, Ava replied. It's meant to stop you. Two uniformed security staff stepped closer. Not aggressive, just prepared. The terrace manager held a clipboard. I'm afraid you're not on the approved guest list. You'll need to leave. Harper's voice cracked. Please don't do this. I love him. Lucas stepped forward. I love you too. But love doesn't come with receipts, or manipulation, or lies. Harper broke. Tears fell, silent and heavy. I wanted it perfect. It was never supposed to be perfect, he said. It was supposed to be us. For a moment, no one moved. The wind rustled the flowers. The river kept flowing, indifferent and eternal. Victoria grabbed Harper's arm and tried to pull her away, but Harper stood still, not defiant, just broken. Finally, she whispered, I'm sorry, Lucas. He nodded, eyes glassy, and she let security guide them back toward the waiting SUV. No screaming, no theatrics. Just two people learning that pride can cost more than love. When the car disappeared into Manhattan traffic, silence settled over the terrace, not heavy, just clean. The officiant cleared his throat softly. Shall we begin? Lucas looked at me, hesitant, bracing for pity. I shook my head. A wedding doesn't disappear when plans change. It becomes what it was meant to be. He took a deep breath and nodded. The ceremony was small, gentle, beautiful. He didn't read traditional vows. Instead, he spoke from the heart. My whole life, I thought family was who clapped the loudest. But today, I learned it's who stands quietly beside you when the world falls apart. A few guests cried. So did I. When he slipped the Cartier band onto his bride's finger, a simple, elegant woman he had met during the legal chaos, someone who stood by him when the internet burned, I realized something. Victoria and Harper never ruined the wedding. They revealed the people who truly belonged in it. After the ceremony, Lucas pulled me into a long embrace. Thank you for saving my name. No, I whispered. You saved it yourself. The sun dipped behind the skyline. Glasses clinked. Laughter rose. The world didn't end. It began again. A month after the wedding, spring had turned into early summer, the kind that makes New York smell like rain on warm pavement and blooming magnolias. Life finally felt ordinary again, ordinary in the best way. Lucas and his wife, Emma, invited a few of us to dinner at a small Italian place near Brooklyn Bridge Park. No chandeliers, no premium seating, just pasta, laughter, and a table full of people who had survived something together. Midway through dessert, Lucas leaned close and whispered, Mom, there's news. He pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. An email was open, formal language, agency letterhead. Victoria's event resale scheme had been officially documented. She had been fined, required to refund unnamed parties she solicited, and banned from contracting with several luxury venues in New York for a period of years. No jail, no tabloids, no drama, just accountability written in administrative ink. Not prison, Lucas said quietly, but consequences. That's all justice ever needed to be, I replied. Balance, not revenge. He exhaled, relief loosening something in his shoulders that had been tight for months. Emma squeezed his hand, her eyes soft with pride. We toasted with sparkling water. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. A few days later, Harper sent me a letter, not an email, not a text. A real letter, ink on textured paper, her handwriting unsteady. Mrs. Coleman, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I hurt you. I humiliated you. I hurt Lucas. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know I'm in therapy, and I'm learning that perfect was something I tried to buy, not build. I'm sorry. I truly am. I sat with that letter for a long time. She wasn't excusing herself. She wasn't asking for anything. Just accountability. And oddly, that was enough. I didn't mail a reply. Some wounds don't need conversation. They need space. 2 weeks later, Lucas and Emma hosted a small family dinner at the River Cafe. The terrace glowing under string lights, with Manhattan sparkling like a jewelry box behind it. Not a wedding, not a spectacle. Just gratitude. At one point, Lucas tapped his glass and stood. I spent months thinking a big wedding meant a big marriage, he said. Turns out the size doesn't matter, the heart does. So tonight isn't about what went wrong, it's about who stood with us. Guests smiled. Someone dabbed their eyes. I stayed very still, because mothers cry too easily, and I'd already lived a lifetime in tears. Lucas turned toward me. Mom, you saved this wedding long before anyone knew it was in danger. Not by shouting, not by fighting, by knowing the difference between love and control. My breath caught. He walked over and hugged me. Not a quick, grown man hug, but the kind he used to give when he was small and scared of thunderstorms. I used to think you were just my mother, he said, voice thick. But you're also the person who taught me how to choose integrity. My eyes burned, and I kissed his cheek. I didn't save anything. I just refused to lose you. That night, after everyone left, I stayed on the terrace a while. The river moved beneath the bridge, soft and dark, lighting up in ripples under passing boats. I opened my Kindle and reread a line from Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, I had highlighted long ago. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. I closed the device and breathed in the clean night air. Harper was rebuilding her life somewhere else. Victoria was paying fines and repairing her image. None of it made me feel triumphant. It just made the world feel balanced. Lucas and Emma walked out arm in arm, waving goodnight. He looked happy, steady, grown, honest. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't the mother fighting to protect something. I was the mother who had already won. Not with noise, with truth. And as the lights of Manhattan glittered across the river, I realized something simple and profound. The wedding hadn't been about who attended. It had been about who stayed. Some evenings when the city feels gentle, I walk through Central Park with a cup of warm chamomile tea and watch the boats drift across the lake. New York can be loud and unforgiving, but on quiet nights it feels like the world pauses just long enough for healing to breathe. One of those evenings, Lucas and Emma joined me. They didn't announce it. They just fell into step on either side of me, like they had always belonged there. Emma carried a small bouquet of peonies. Lucas brought fresh cannoli from the Italian bakery he loves. It was nothing extraordinary, and somehow it was everything. We sat on a bench beneath the fading sunset. The sky blushed pink, then gold, then that deep blue that looks like velvet. People passed by, tourists, joggers, kids chasing bubbles, strangers with their own heartbreaks and their own beginnings. Life kept happening. Lucas rested his head lightly on my shoulder. Mom, he said, I used to think weddings were about fireworks. Turns out marriage is about peace. I smiled. Fireworks are loud. Peace lasts longer. Emma slipped her hand into his. Thank you for raising a man who can tell the difference. And just like that, the months of tension, fear, and heartbreak felt small compared to this quiet moment. Nothing dramatic. No applause. Just family. Real family. Defining itself without permission from anyone else. On the walk home, fireflies flickered near the trees. Lucas carried the leftover cannoli. Emma hummed a song I didn't know, and I realized healing doesn't arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it arrives as 3 people walking slowly through the park, sharing dessert, breathing easy. Not because life was perfect, because it was honest, and that in the end is the softest kind of miracle.